Hey, welcome back to Mike's Italian Grand Adventure. It's a beautiful August day here in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado. And if you can see, my sunflowers finally came up. It took a while for those to come up, but I have a little outdoor shower here and the water runs off, so I've got a nice little garden here. Usually it's pretty dry up in the mountains here, but I got a little tropical greenness here, which is nice. Anyway, so not a lot of updates, but I do have a few updates. And then I also want to talk about the comments that people have been posting that have been just amazing. So I want to go through a few comments and just give a few more shout outs. And just acknowledge all the people that have been following along. So today, let's look at a few comments. Okay. I guess I should have taken a drink of coffee before I turned the camera on. Okay, let's just take a look at a few comments here. I know you can read these yourself. They're public. But I noticed looking at my analytics that more than half of you viewers are watching on smart TVs. And it's not as easy to see comments on there. So, on your phone or on a computer, desktop, laptop, you can see the comments a little bit easier. But anyway, I just wanted to go through a few while we're here, and then also give you a little update on what's going on with the house in Italy. So let's see here. Some of these are comments from older videos because people, just come across different videos depending on what they're searching for. Let's see. This is one. Oh, yeah. So this is the one where I had the three choices and did the little, the announcement about which one I was going to buy and did the House Hunters reveal. This person said, I guessed it would be the second choice. You love motorcycles. I can see you in the garage with your tools and friends. It has electricity all set up. So, yeah, this is from Leslie Loser 922. So thank you for that. You are correct. It was the second one. And I am looking forward to having my motorcycle in the garage and friends around and working on it in there. So that's really nice. This person says, funny, next month I'll be in Piedmont too, and definitely in Monferrato. I want to see the area around Cozzarzo and later Biella. So this was from Gabrielle AR 6936. So thank you for your comment. And yeah, I can't wait to be there, and maybe we'll run into each other because we're going to be in the same region, and it's a pretty small region. So definitely. A lot of these kind of comments. My husband and I are looking to buy a home in Italy to retire in. We went for our first time in the summer of 2023 and have been looking at homes ever since. Our retirement date is 7 years away, so keeping our fingers crossed for our dream home. Congratulations. So that's awesome. And so many of you are planning to retire or hoping to retire in Italy, and I hope it's successful for all of you. So this was from Tamek193. So thank you for your comment and your message. Another one, good choice from Goodphone156. Thank you. Congrats, Mike. When is the big move? On the flip side, is the user name. So I'm going to be there this fall to kind of close the deal and take a look at the place, maybe clean it up a little bit, make some plans. And then I don't plan to move there full time. So I'm going to keep my house here in Colorado, and I'll be here in the summer. Okay, here's another one from Jody Airbear 8285. She says, what site are you using to search? Love that first one with the frescoes, and then the second one is large with 2 baths. Both great value. So this was the one where before I announced which one I was going to buy, and I had 3 different options. I think the castle was one of those, actually. Was that it? Yeah, I'm not sure. But yeah, I do remember the one with the frescoes. That was a beautiful one. So the site I'm using to search, I've used throughout this whole thing, is called idealista.it, and I can put a link in the description. I think I put a link in the last description as well, the last video, but I'll add it to this video. There's a couple other ones. I think there's one called casa.it, and then real estate in Italian is immobiliare. So there's a website called immobiliare.it as well. So there's 3 that I know of that are pretty popular. And then there's quite a few videos on YouTube of people going through houses or properties and doing tours. So those would be the ones I would look at. Let's see. Oh, here's a great one here. This one's from News AK1. And she says, I went on a cycling tour through the Piedmont area and tasted all the great wine and went on a truffle hunt. I have been searching for a place too, and I'm attracted to that area because of the beauty, but also thinking it may be cooler in summer. Hey, I agree with you. That's the reason I picked that area, was for the food and the wine, and the landscape is really beautiful. I'm not so sure about the climate, if it's going to be cooler. For sure, it's going to be cooler than the southern parts of Italy, where it's just baking hot and super dry. But nowadays it's just crazy. When I was there in June, I was up in the foothills in the Lake District, and it was hot and humid. I mean, like 90s, so like mid 30s in Celsius, and super humid and hazy. And it was kind of terrible. Like, I was driving through the mountains expecting to look at the Dolomites, and it was so hazy you couldn't even see across a valley. So I don't think there's any guarantee with climate these days. It's just so erratic and so different than it has been for the last 100 years. So, but I do agree with you. Being further north in Italy, closer to the Alps, I think you're a little bit better off. I know they've had some flooding up there. They had flooding up in the northern parts of Italy when I was there. Like right when I rolled into Italy, it was incredibly rainy in April, or I think it was May actually. But I think the chances are better that you're going to have better weather up there. So, okay, let's see what else we got. All right, Starfish 4836 says, congratulations, Mike. I'll be doing the same in late fall, Italy. Wow, that's awesome. Good. I'm glad to hear that people are traveling and checking out the areas and trying something a little different than just Tuscany. I mean, don't get me wrong, Tuscany is beautiful and it's worthwhile, but it's one of those things that I try to avoid the places everyone else goes to. I don't want to go to those places. I did go to them a long time ago, 20 or more years ago, when I was first traveling through Europe, and they're fine, they're great. Just right now, I feel like they're too crowded, so I don't like to go to those places, and I've kind of seen most of that stuff. So anyway, congratulations, Piedmont. I think is going to be a great region. And then Elizabeth Mauji 2402 says, sounds opposite what I hear about southern Italy because the south is known for being agricultural. I don't know where you're hearing that. If you drive down there, there's not much agriculture other than olive trees. There's olive tree orchards everywhere. So the number one producer of olive oil in Italy is Puglia, the heel of Italy. And it's kind of mountainous down around there. So maybe up in the foothills of the mountains, there's agriculture for sure. And don't get me wrong, there's agriculture all over Italy. I mean, all over Europe. Any place there's not a town, there's usually a farm if the climate can support it. But it's not much agriculture down there. So I don't know what your source is, but it doesn't fit with what I've seen on the ground. Let's see what else we got here. Hoosier in Utah. He sent a couple of nice comments before, but he says, thanks, Mike, for the update. Keep the videos coming. We're enjoying the ride along with your adventure. So you're welcome. And thank you for your comments. And I really appreciate it. It's been fun following along. Okay, here's a good one. This is from my buddy Dean, who I gave a shout out to in one of my previous videos here. He says, incredibly excited for you, Mike. Will your father be helping with any restoration needs? If so, does Italy have a limit on how much JB Weld can be brought through customs? Thanks for the shout out. So we've joked forever that my dad will fix anything with duct tape or JB Weld. If you're not familiar with JB Weld, it's a 2-part epoxy. It comes in 2 tubes and you mix it together and then it hardens incredibly hard, and you can fix it, you can carve it, sand it, whatever. So my dad, one time Dean went with my dad and a friend of my dad's on a canoe trip in the Boundary Water canoe areas. And the paddles that we had for our canoes were kind of old and, dried out and maybe cracked. So my dad fixed all those cracks with JB Weld instead of buying some new paddles. He probably spent more on JB Weld. And the paddles were like 20 pounds each. So Dean always jokes about JB Weld with my dad. So anyway, that was a great one. I had to share that one. Okay, this one from Paul Brosard, 1824. He says, thanks for all the information, Mike. Isn't the geometra also the person who would evaluate the structure for stability, similar to what a property inspection would be in the States? Is it possible to get that done for a property in advance of making an offer? Here, that's a prerequisite during the offer stage where you can request repairs, etc. I'm curious about that process. Yes, you're absolutely right. I think the geometra does also do things like inspections of the property to make sure it's stable. And, there's a lot of seismic activity in certain parts of Italy, so they do check for that. And yes, I'm sure you can do it ahead of time. The only problem is you'd have to pay for it. And then if you don't buy the place, you're out that money. But obviously that could very well be a great investment because you don't want to have to find out about a serious structural issue after you buy a place. So yes, you can, through your realtor, get a geometra. I've read some articles that said, sometimes that partnership between a geometra and a realtor can be somewhat sketchy. So maybe you want to try to find one on your own, but that might be really difficult on your own. So I don't know. I feel super confident with Paula. I mean, I just texted her this morning and she responded within 5 minutes, and we haven't texted in like a week or two. So, I'm confident with whatever she suggests and anyone she might suggest. But it also depends, like the guy I had in Abruzzo, I don't know, he was a little bit shady, super nice, but, I just kind of didn't have a great feel. Yeah, so Geometra, I think, is a great example of an expense that is worthwhile for sure. Absolutely. All right. I don't know if you guys can hear the birds. There's a bunch of little sparrows chirping up in the tree. Okay, so here BA3QT says, why not rent out the second apartment permanently? There will be someone to look after the house when you're absent. That's absolutely a great idea. I mean, that's nice. I guess one of the benefits of a short-term rental is that you can make a little bit more. I think you can charge more per night than you could if you just rent it out. I think rental rates to like a local or an Italian would be quite a bit lower. And then, of course, there's no guarantee if you have a local renter that they're going to treat the place nicely. I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying that short-term renters would be better. I mean, I'm sure there are people there that don't really take good care of a place they're staying at, like someone from Airbnb or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. Those are the decisions I'll have to think about. I'm not really sure. It's just kind of, I have to go by feel, or maybe I try it and then it doesn't work out with the short-term rental, and then I decide, I want to get someone who's going to stay there longer. So these are the things I'm going to have to kind of work on and think about over time, and maybe experience. Maybe there'll be some tough lessons, but we'll see. All right, let's see what else we got here. A couple more comments. Thanks, Mike. Okay, so this is Indian JU says, thanks, Mike. Very interesting video. Could you elaborate a bit on the negotiation process? That would be very helpful too. Thanks a bunch. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a pretty standard type of negotiation. You can bid low and see what they say. I don't know. In my opinion, the worst they can say is say no, and then you can come back, and if they come back, counter with a higher price. Meet somewhere in the middle. But my recommendation would be to just draw a line where you don't want to go past, right? Because it's easy to get kind of tied up with emotional feelings and things you want, and they're listing it for 100 and you offer them 80, and then you start thinking about all the things you could do to it. You kind of start getting invested in it, and you're like, how great would it be to live here? And you do some research and find out you love the city. So yeah, I mean, like I said in one of my other videos, the best thing for me to do is to not get emotionally involved, because once you are, then you've lost all control of the process of negotiation. So I would just say start low, start even lower than you think you're going to go, and then you can always come back up. Once you agree on a price, you can't go down. So that's my advice for negotiation. I'm usually a pretty tough negotiator. I'm ready to walk away from any deal usually. So that kind of puts me in the driver's seat, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, and I move on. So my biggest thing would be, obviously you need to find a place you like and that you want, and when you're already at that point, then you're kind of emotionally invested, obviously, right? But I would say just realize that there's a lot of options out there, and if that place doesn't work, then move on and you'll find another place, and maybe it wasn't meant to be. That's kind of the way I rationalize it and think about it in my brain, is if If I like the place and I make a low offer and they say no, and they don't come back, all right, well, then that's a sign too that they're not going to be very flexible. And maybe on other issues too that you have, they're not going to be flexible. So I kind of use that as a sign. So that's what I would do for negotiation. Oh, nice. Yeah. This would be Martin Stens by 2011 says, "Great, Mike. When you feel like taking a break, you're welcome to visit and see the fantastic little house and views I have in Abruzzo." Well, thank you very much, Martin. I appreciate that. And I'd likely come back down to Abruzzo. I love that area. I love that region. San Marino is right there, and that's a really cool little place to visit. You know, an autonomous country inside the borders of Italy, surrounded by Italian regions. I went there on my motorcycle trip in this spring when I went down through Italy and visited 17 of the 20 regions. So yeah, Abruzzo is really a great area, beautiful, lots of stuff to see. Yeah, I like it a lot. So thank you for the invitation. I may very well take you up on that. Okay, here's a really good one from Kelly Turley 8295. She says, "Hey Mike, I can confirm your comments. It matches our experience so far. We are in the process of purchasing in Mosso, Piedmont. Notary closing also in September. We love the Piedmont area, and Mosso is a very affordable area in the mountains." So that's fantastic. That's someone else who's going through the same process, buying and going to buy about the same time I am. And they're saying that what I mentioned in my last video about how to buy a place in Italy is similar to the experience they've had so far. So that's really great. Thank you so much, Kelly. I really appreciate that. That confirmation is helpful. Yeah, so look, that's, I think, enough comments for right now, but just wanted to give you guys an idea of all the amazing feedback that I've had. It's just been overwhelmingly positive, really great. So thank you so much for those comments. The other thing I want to talk about is a little update on the house. So I texted Paula this morning because we'd been talking a couple weeks ago about the utilities and getting those turned on. So, I'm just planning on being there for a couple of weeks this fall. I'm not going to be there for too long. And so I don't really want to turn the heat on and then just leave the heat on all winter. So I told her, let's hold off on that. And I told her just to kind of hold off on all utilities. And when I come back next spring, we can take care of all those. But then I realized this morning, or yesterday, I'd like the power to be on. I'd like the lights to be on, at least when I'm there this fall. So I just texted her this morning and said, "Hey, Paula, could we get the power to be on when I'm there?" And man, within a couple minutes, she responded immediately and just said, "Yep, no problem. I'll send you a contract. You can look it over, and we'll make sure we get it all set up so your power will be on when you arrive this fall." So fantastic. But she said, I also asked her about the deposit, because part of the offer is you have to pay a deposit by a certain amount of time. And I mentioned that in the previous video, when I was talking about how to buy a house and that initial proposal of acquisition. So it's not much. It's 5,000 euros was a deposit. But she said, just hold off on the deposit. They had a mortgage on the property, and the mortgage is at zero. It's paid off, but the mortgage is still open. I want to make sure that mortgage is closed before we move further. So Paula's really doing her job, I feel. It's really nice that she's on the ball, because I wouldn't know about these things. But the reason we're waiting is because the month of August, pretty much the whole country of Italy is closed. So everyone from the center of the country goes to the beaches or to the islands or goes to the region. Like, actually, a year ago this time, I was riding through the Balkans, and I was coming up through Albania, through Greece, and I saw so many Italians. So, everything's closed. So she said, let me wait until the first week of September, when the notaria opens up, the notary, the Italian notary opens up, and that's who controls that information. And so that's who she needs to check with. But the offices are basically closed. And actually, in an earlier video, I was contacting a realtor to look at another property before I decided to buy this place. And he said, yeah, I'll be here until August 8th. And I was like, well, where are you going to be after August 8th? And then someone posted a comment, Italy's closed. And of course, it dawned on me. I knew that. But it just didn't register at the time. So anyway, that's kind of the update. We're just kind of in a holding pattern. I think everything's still good. We've got the signed contract. The seller signed the contract. I just need to make the deposit and then try to get a bank account set up so I can wire some money over for the purchase. And yeah, I think everything else is going really smoothly. And so I'm just waiting here, just hanging out and getting excited. I leave not too long for Europe again. So soon, within a few weeks here, you'll have some videos from Italy and from Europe, and I'll be happy to share with you guys the journey along the way there too. So a couple more shout outs. I opened a can of worms when I started doing shout outs a couple of weeks ago. So I've heard from quite a few people that said, why didn't I get a shout out? So last night I was talking to my buddy Eric in DC, or in Virginia actually. He works in DC. And he and I went to high school together and college together, and we've traveled a ton. And last fall, actually, I met him in Prague, and then he took the train to Budapest, Hungary, and I rode my motorcycle there, and we hung out there for a couple of days. Then he went home, and I went through around the Balkans. We've also traveled together in Portugal and in Greece and in Spain. So we've met up quite a bit. And so anyway, Eric's watching every one of the videos. He was actually back in Minnesota at a golf tournament with his dad, and he watched an episode, the one where I said I'm buying a house, with his parents. And so that was really great. So I know his parents. Really great to see that Denny and Barb were watching along with Eric. And so I appreciate it. Anyway, Eric, here is your shout out, my friend. Thank you for watching and following along. Who else? Steve, I was in Denver last weekend and had lunch with Steve, and Steve said, what's the deal? Why not a shout out for me? And I swear I did give him a shout out in my first video, but I didn't look back at it, so I'm not sure if I did or not. But anyway, Steve, thanks for watching. And I'm sure Janet, Steve's wife, is watching those too, and I appreciate both you guys and your enthusiasm. In fact, they already reserved my room for next year, my guest room. So they'll be coming over to Italy, hopefully, and checking out my place. So looking forward to that. Who else did I hear from this last week or two? Gosh, there's so many people. I know I thanked Rob and Karen already. Oh, that's a funny one. So I get a phone call yesterday. I was riding to meet my buddy Paul to do some motorcycle riding. So Paul, I thanked you last week, and I think Paul's wife is watching these too, Deborah. So thank you, Deborah, if you're watching along with Paul. But then I got a call from my friend Rob from Holland, and they're doing a 3-week vacation in Italy right now. And I get a video call from them, and he's like, hey, can you see where I'm at? And I look behind him, and they're standing right in front of my house. So they went 45 minutes out of their way to check and see where my house is going to be and walk around the town and take a look at it. And they said they really liked it. They said it's a small town, but really beautiful, really nice there in the Monferrato region of Piedmont. So really cool. So that was awesome. A real surprise. So it's really amazing, like how excited people are for me, or along with me, I should say. So it's just been, humbling, really. Okay, some more shout outs. I just got to think here for a minute. Shoot. It's just, obviously when you're sitting here trying to remember it, it's hard. Well, okay, I'm going to cut it off there for now, and I've got more weeks coming. So I'll, if I missed you on this week, for sure, it's coming up. I'll get you on a shout out coming up. And if I remember any more before I edit this, I'll throw a couple more in at the end. But thanks again for everyone watching. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you soon. All right, I just remembered 2 more shout outs. I'm about to post this video and I had to get these in. Darus, my friend from Golden, he's been watching every single video. He was one of the first ones really dialed into YouTube and was showing me all these YouTube channels. And he was my consultant I referred to when I decided to start my YouTube channel. And he's been watching everyone. And I really thank you so much, Darus, for that. And then also, Sarah, come on. I didn't know you were watching all these videos with Webby. But okay, here's your shout out.